Okay, thank you very much for joining us. What is it, Thursday the 30th at 2 p.m. For our Power Hour. Now, for those of you who haven't joined our Power Hours before, this is very much a chance to stop what you're doing, take a bit of a reflection moment, hopefully get some nuggets of information that can help you move forward, iterate, and come accelerating out the back of this crisis that we're all experiencing right now. They're very much focused on what you are talking about. We have a survey that we'll put out to you very shortly as well, just to keep that information coming so we understand where people are at any one point, and we can make sure these are tailored to the journeys of everybody on this call right now. If you are hearing any feedback right now, if you could just put yourselves on mute, it might be just an echo that that you're experiencing. So if everybody could go on mute, that'd be great. I'm happy to mute everybody if you're unable to do it yourself. There we go. Hopefully the feedback's gone now. Anyway, right. So today is all about creating the future, and it's interesting because I was just saying just before then, I had an interest. I was sat on a panel the other day, and the senior economic growth officers in large councils are talking about what their recovery plan is, how they can look up from the firefighting position they're in right now and understand how we're going to open up businesses. One key consideration, which was really interesting, was what happens if we allow food outlets to open up but are next to each other, and there's social distancing going on, and they have to manage the queues outside on the pavements and all of this, and it's mind-boggling. But and the other part is it's really difficult to know where to focus your efforts as business owners, as business leaders, as entrepreneurs, as startups. Where should you be focusing your efforts right now so that you're fit for the future, so you can start building the foundations for growth and accelerate at pace out of it? That's what the key topic is all about today. We always start with the mindset of the entrepreneur and have a look where we're focusing in on this. And it's very much around these parts. Certainly, as per, I engage with my customers, understanding their journeys. That's a key part of this. Staying constantly curious, easy for me to say, staying constantly curious and asking the right questions at the right time of yourself and others and people within your organization, and being opportunity hungry to really focus on the future and understand what that might look like, spot the opportunities and know where to go after them, when to go after them. And I guess one other part of that is reimagining daily, because right now we're all in this position where we are reimagining where we're going with this, what we can do. We are making small iterations. We did a session the other week on pivoting at pace, making those small changes, step changes towards the greater vision, but still moving at pace and trying to grow our businesses. So that's another area of consideration. A couple of house rules, if we could, bit of housekeeping. If you could just keep your audio and video off for now. Video's okay because the bandwidth seems to be good. And then we'll bring you in when we ask a question. That'd be great if you could all kind of chip in and just bring your nuggets of information, your experiences to the party. That'd be great. Use the chat box, get it going on the chat. We had fantastic chat last week, load of questions going on. People are answering those questions. So if you don't want to be on the video, by all means get on the chat, ask some questions, and there'll be plenty of people on this call who'll be able to help answer those for you. We will we'll be able to get as many of those as we can do. We are recording this session, so it will be circulated. So super, right. As I said, the topic of creating the future is something that we're really passionate about, and it seems to be that people are looking up from their position on the fire hose right now and thinking about what is necessary and what we need to do. So I wanted to bring in somebody who has, should we say, been there, done it, and got the T-shirt, John. Somebody who's a best-selling startup author. And I think you could probably do a better job at introducing yourself and the books that you've written and what you're doing now. So let me bring John in, who is our guest speaker today. So thank you so much for being with us, John. Over to you.
Yeah, thank you. I started my career in software. So I was a software developer, programming in C and C++ and BASIC and machine code, if anyone knows what that is. Back in the 1980s, I started. And so I've been in innovation pretty much my whole career. And I worked in innovative technologies for the creative industries. So I ended up working for Avid Technology, making software that was used by Disney, used by the BBC, consulting directly to the BBC and other broadcasters around the world, and creating things that had never existed before. And some of those companies blew up and became huge. Some of them collapsed. Some of them got bought by bigger companies, and so on. I ended up at Deloitte for a year as a senior managing consultant. And I didn't really like Deloitte very much, just didn't really click with me. I'm not a very corporate person, as you can tell probably by the choice of title of my books. And I left and consulted independently to broadcasters, and then started training in psychotherapy and coaching. And I started running a live event for creative people called Scanner's Night. A scanner is somebody, it's a term from a US author called Barbara Sher. A scanner, see if you are one of these people, is somebody who has lots of ideas, lots of interests, loves learning things for the sake of it. As soon as you've got the gist of something, you want to move on to another subject, so you get bored easily. And you find it easy to start things and more difficult to finish them. So I'm one. I don't know if anybody else wants to fess up in the chat window to being a scanner.
That'd be interesting, John. Let's get a show of hands there. Who
thinks they're a scanner? So the opposite is a diver, and you're happy to go deep in. You better hope that if you ever have brain surgery, your brain surgeon is a diver. You just want him or her to love brain surgery and care about nothing else and spend their life thinking about it. But for I think a lot of people who push things forward these days are scanners. If you feel you are one of those people who has more ideas than you can ever pursue in one lifetime, type yes in the chat window. I've worked with a lot of scanners over the years. It's not exclusively though. So that was an event I ran for several years. It ended up getting covered in the Daily Mail, the Daily Express, and some glossy magazines, just because it was a little bit unusual. And then I got a book deal for this book, Screw What, Let's Play. This is now 10 years old. And I went on to, that book did really well. It was named as one of the buzz books of the summer by the Sunday Times. It's been translated into 10 languages. I wrote a second book called Screw Up, Break Free. So for those of you, probably the audience here might resonate with Screw Up, Break Free more, because it's very much about making lean startup come to life. But I don't think I ever use the term lean startup. I might do. I reference Eric Ries perhaps, but it's kind of like a version of lean startup for everybody, even if you're not in a tech startup. Even if what you're starting is something just selling your own expertise, for instance. And out of that, I started the Ideas Lab, and I now help people find an idea they love, turn it into a business, and then scale it up. And we run these free 5-day challenges called the Business Startup Challenge. There's one happening in a week's time, in fact. But we had 1,000 people on last time. And I run a paid program called the Pioneer Program, which we have currently about 50 people on. So that's what I spend my time doing. And apart from all my other scanner interests, I've got another book coming out this summer from Pearson, if there's any bookshops left to sell it in. And so I've had a very, very mixed kind of background, from technology to, psychology and sort of everything in between. So there's quite a few people here saying yes. Deepak says 15 years and still learning and at it. Different things to learn. Loads of ideas, says Lawrence. Also a completer finisher, which is the best kind of scanner, because I do differentiate actually in this first book between scanners who go somewhere and scanners who don't. Like Elon Musk is a scanner. So is, I'm trying to think of some other famous ones. You could say Oprah Winfrey is a scanner. There are lots of examples who have very, very broad interests, but they manage to channel it into something really successful. So even if you have lots of ideas, you do need to pursue some of them to completion. Otherwise, you'll never get anywhere.
I'll tell you what, John, we've seen, so we work with thousands of entrepreneurs, and I would say it's an entrepreneurial trait that we all go after the shiny things. And you could probably put that in the scanner bracket. Or there's another word term for it, and it's that kind of jack of all trades and master of none. I would definitely put myself in that as well.
Yeah, but I think I think that's the reason why this scanner concept interests people so much is because it's been denigrated. So we believe that being the world's greatest expert on one very narrow field is seen as being the best you can be. But in actual fact, we think of the people who push things forward, they're actually often breaking boundaries across multiple fields. So if you look at, Steve Jobs is a classic example, and you think how he brought a love of typography and of design and of like his hippie acid trips and his, experiences in India, and all of it came into what Apple became, which made it so distinctive from PCs at the time, that he really set technology in a different direction. Thank heavens, I have to say. I'm quite biased against the original version of Windows and so on. So it takes people who think across disciplines, who often bring in the most radical ideas, I believe.
Yeah, definitely. So just stepping back a bit, because I think there was a part you missed, and I would like to explore this just for a second, is you went from consulting and had a lot of different ideas, and then you just wrote a book. Now, not everybody just stops what they're doing and goes and writes a book. What made you go, I have enough information, I have enough experience, I know what I'm doing here, I'm going to write a book?
I got offered a book deal, but the way that which sounds trite, but when people say how win a book deal, I say, this is, by the way, that's not as bad a result, an answer as Chris Brogan once, who's written a number of books. And somebody said, why did you write this book? And he goes, I had a 3-book contract. Don't say that when you're promoting a book. Anyway, but I was literally offered this, but it came about organically. So for anybody who wants to write a book, but this applies for a lot of other things too. Most of the people I know who have got book deals have got them by attracting them. So what that means is you go out and you do something. And this is one of the principles of Screw It, Let's Play. If you can play your passions out and they lead places that are really interesting. So I ran Scanners Night originally, this event for scanners, because I was a scanner and I wanted to meet other scanners. Then it turned into this event with up to 80 people and getting press coverage and so on, organically. I started coaching individuals around their creativity and their careers. And that evolved into what became the Ideas Lab. And those two things, what happened was, one of the individuals I was coaching, called Chris Wilde, who went on to create a very successful blog called Retronaut, which is a smash hit kind of viral historical photo blog. He ended up talking to Pearson and was talking about an idea he had for a book, which they did commission, but he decided not to write because he was too busy. And they, at some point, they mentioned this concept to scanners and people got lots of interests. And he said, oh, you should talk to John Williams because he runs an event about scanners. And so then I got into a conversation and that led to the book. Now, the reason why that might be relevant to other people, which might seem like a very, particular story to me, it's not actually, it's a generic, it's actually a methodology. If you do interesting things in your space, you attract interesting opportunities.
Yeah.
So, and I've seen this happen again and again and again. I've got a friend who runs courses for women around their relationship with food called Beyond Chocolate. It's about how to not diet. And they were in that space. There was 2 sisters running it in that space for long enough, where people just eventually approached them and said, have you written a book yet? And they went, no. And an agent said, well, you should, and I can get you a book deal.
Yeah.
And that's actually an awful lot easier in some ways. You just do the thing you want to do and the book deal comes to you. Now, there's nothing wrong with pitching if you've got a good platform, as the publishing industry calls it. But it's for anyone's in that phase of entrepreneurship where you're searching for an idea, if you just do interesting things in the world and that have value to people, it will give you much more information than sitting on your backside hoping for a bolt of lightning of inspiration telling you what you should be doing with your life.
Yeah. It's interesting, and we've had a number of conversations with entrepreneurs over this time, and talking about, a lot of the critical business development and delivery of services has been put on the back burner, and people are trying to understand how they can become a thought leader, or how can they be, that person who people come to, and continue those conversations, so that when we do come out of it, we're front and center of everybody's minds.
Yeah.
I guess the ultimate question there is, how do you do that? Or what do you focus on?
Right. And what I noticed very early on when, it was apparent that the virus was spreading and things were getting bad. I mean, it mystifies me that when I flew to Thailand for a month on the third week of January, and was aware there was some risk in being in Asia because I'd heard about this virus, and got to the airport and everyone's wearing masks. And by the time I came back a month later, it was really serious. And I debated whether to bypass Bangkok. I was supposed to spend 3 days in. So I got back on February the 20th or something like that. And then the UK and US government seemed to do nothing for a month. So it's a bit of a mystery. But when finally everyone went, oh, wow, this is really bad. I noticed that some people were actually kind of stepping up and being more visible. So the business coaches, for instance, who I follow, who are kind of a level above me, they, the ones who kind of were going live more and doing more free stuff for people and helping more, were the ones I was paying attention to. So I echoed that and have been sharing more stuff myself. And I think the people who do this right now and who just help and act like a human as well, not as some sort of, yes, there's a payoff probably later, but if you do it instead of like it's got the energy, instead of having the energy of some sort of marketing tactic, if it has the energy of you just want to help people, people will remember that. When you make a genuine human connection with people, when all this starts to fade and we have more other things to worry about, we will remember the people who answered our question personally, or who, if you email and a CEO replies and recognizes your distress about something, that really sticks in people's minds. But also if you go live and say, one of the things I did was I noticed everyone suddenly started using Zoom, and I've been using Zoom for a long time, as probably you have. And so I thought a lot of people are asking questions about Zoom. What I'll do is I'll go live on Zoom. I'll do a Zoom session and record it and invite anybody who wants to come along live. And I'll explain all the buttons. It's quite difficult to do in Zoom because you can't see the buttons when you're actually doing Zoom. So I took a screen grab and I had to kind of mess around a little bit to show the buttons I was seeing. And I just answered questions for like 40 minutes to an hour. Then I took the recording and just gave it to anybody who wanted it. So that kind of thing is, it's simple to do. It's quite enjoyable for me I like the sound of my own voice. I like talking about things. So that's quite easy to do, but it was actually really useful to people at that moment in time. Mm-hmm. So whatever you can think of that could be helpful in your particular space. The other thing I did is I created a Facebook group called Humanity versus Corona. Because what I was noticing is if you read all the information that comes out without filtering it, scientific information, it'll fry your brain. Because one day we're all going to die, and the next day we're all going to, walk out of our houses tomorrow. And it's crazy making. So what I decided to do was share the positive, scientific, evidence-backed information in one place, which is, my belief is that because the whole of humanity has got one common enemy, we're going to make progress faster than we've ever seen before. Mm-hmm. And so I thought, everyone says we won't get a vaccine for 18 months. Maybe we won't. But some people are already saying maybe we'll have one in September from the Oxford labs. And my money's on the September date. So I might be proved wrong. Who knows? But I think I'm posting stuff like that has some benefit to it. There's some evidence to it in a Facebook group, because I'm passionate about science and I'm very intolerant of people who believe, the wacko conspiracy theories. So that's just my particular flavor, but somebody else's could be anything else. I also post a lot of jokes on my personal Facebook profile. And,
we're
I have
not
a
we're
very
not we're
dark
not
sense of humor.
we're not all funny. That's the problem.
But
My
some
repertoire
people
is full of dad jokes, actually, John. But
you're right, yeah.
what you're actually, I mean, I'm kind of distilling this slightly, but what you've actually focused in on there is a need at the current time. People don't know how to use Zoom. People are new to it. You've put on a forum, you've learned it yourself, and then delivered some value to a customer. That's a current pain point. And we like to talk about pain points in kind of the startup world. But I guess in your language, what would you call a pain point? And then how do we actually find out what our customers' pain points are, and how do we actually deliver that value to them?
So this is something I think I've got good at. Maybe it's the counseling practice or something. I don't know what. Funny enough, we all have a bit of a challenge zooming into getting into the heads of our target customer, because it's very difficult to get out of our own. If it was easy, we'd never have a disagreement in our personal relationships, right? Because you completely understand where your partner's coming from, and you're unlikely to have an argument. So, and they'd completely understand where you're coming from. But unfortunately, humans are not like that. And so the same problem applies to marketing and to proposition development. And the key really is, everyone's heard this: solve a problem, address the pain, and they go, oh yeah, but they don't do it. And what it really means in my book is, you have to completely inhabit the head of the person who is your target client, target buyer, whatever it might be. And think about, what are they worried about? What do they dream of? What are they frustrated with? What are they fed up with? What wakes them up in the middle of the night? And if you can find solutions to all those feelings, they will pay you. And there is a second category of reasons why people buy, which are about aspiration, about status. But for most of us, you've got to at least have some of this really tangible problem solving in your offer. Otherwise, it won't sell. So, for instance, I'll often say, I'll do it live. If you type in the chat window the problem you solve for people, here's the format I suggest you put it in. The format should be: I help people who are worried about, or are anxious about, or are fed up with, or are bored of, and then describe what the situation is. When I ask people to do that, they almost never do it right. But it's okay, because that's how you learn, right? It's the same for me when I'm learning stuff. I do other people's courses and still get things wrong, of course. So we need to practice this stuff, because what people say quite often, I'd love to see anybody's definition of the problem they solve or intend to solve in the chat. What we normally say is, I help people who want to increase turnover. That's not a problem. That's a desire. And if there isn't a problem anywhere in there, then they don't need you. Because the problem is, there must be something in the way of increasing turnover. And also, why do they want to increase turnover? And the answer to that solution, that question, is often, what does their life look like right now? So here they are sitting at home at the computer working. What does life look like when you don't have enough turnover, when you don't have enough, whatever problem it is? If you want to decrease staff turnover, for instance, what's it look like when you've got a high rate of staff turnover? What do you feel like when that's happening? And the more you know that really clearly, the more you can, the more powerful your offer can be.
Yeah.
Deepak says, I was just reading a book about this, creating a worksheet about this. It says, start with your USP and what the pain it solves, and then set the pain question on it. That's one way of doing it. So you can say, I've got something unique about the way I do my thing, or what I do. But unless that is of interest to people because it solves their problem better than most people's solution, then your USP doesn't really make much difference.
It's kind of the backward way of doing it, I guess. If you think about the USP that you can of your solution, what you haven't done there is actually identified a need or a problem or a pain point that you are solving. So that seems back to front to me, because once you know that problem inherently, you just know it. You know, you're inside the customer's heads. You're talking to the problem. You're talking to the pain point. You know their customer journey. You know where they are now, right on that field. That's when you can then tailor a solution to help that problem, and also understand how many people have that problem. Is it a game worth playing? So interesting.
Yeah.
Really interesting.
David says, no, pain is part of our job. No money is a pain. So then you need to get really specific. What does that mean, no money? So I don't know if you're talking to businesses or talking to individuals, but what does your life look like when you've got no money? And what are the kind of things that happen to you and that weigh on your mind when that is the case? And the more you can tune into it, what this eventually allows you to do is write copy that is like a mind reader. So when people read copy on your website, they'll just go, oh my God, this person's reading my mind. This is insane. And if all you do is describe their pain really well, you get somebody absolutely hooked. And then they'll be much more engaged in what your solution is. Now, the typical copywriting stuff, which is one of the things I teach, is you might have a headline that speaks to the desire. Sometimes you can have a negative headline talking to the pain, but often you have the headline talks to the promise, double your turnover without extra staff, or I don't know what it might be. And then underneath you describe what their life is like right now. And that's what really hooks them in. When I have a lot of people working sort of B2C space, helping people improve their lives, or I don't know, business coaches or whatever it might be, all sorts of stuff, and people working with corporates as well. But in the B2C space, people might say something like, oh, I help people who want to lose weight. Well, wanting to lose weight is not a problem. What is the problem? The problem is you're overweight, you don't like the way you look, you're starting to look in the mirror and dislike your own body. Now, whether this is healthy or not is another matter. But if this is what's going on for people in someone's head, this is what you can talk to. And you've tried losing weight and you've tried doing diets, and you get excited for a few days and you think this is the one. And then suddenly you fall off the wagon and you feel so bad you actually binge eat, and you end up even more heavy than you were before. If this is you, and then you can kind of, go into what it looks like, what you're offering. But when you do something like that, and if somebody lives like that and recognizes that situation, it's really, really compelling. And that works for software too. I mean, I've seen stuff. I remember one of the examples I used to use was one of those things that finds your subscriptions and identifies them, because I've got so many subscriptions in my business. I have this just general uneasy feeling that I'm spending money on things that I can't even remember. So many software apps and stuff, which you might have this, Jeremy. And some of them I'm not even using. And because some of them are coming out of PayPal, some of them are coming off the card, and some of them are direct debit, and some of them are from my personal account, I can't keep track of them all. And there was a software that said, this is what it does, basically identifies these things and allows you to cancel them easily. But it said, like, I think the headline was something like, have you ever looked at your credit card bill and wondered what the hell is that? And it was such a good description of where I was and what I just done. I'd looked at my business charge card and read, what is that thing? I've never heard of that. And I'm paying for it every month. That you're completely hooked to the point you read that. Yeah. So that's the point we want to get people to.
Yeah, and what I'd like to be able to try and open this up to everybody as well, because there's a number of people on this call who will be actively going out there and understanding their customer more and more and more. Some of them may be afforded more time to do it than others right now. Some may be absolutely knee deep in delivery, absolutely. But those who do have the time right now, I'd be interested to find out what you're doing to really understand the customer journey, the needs, the pain points, and then how you're reacting to it. And if you can come on and I'll make sure I'll unmute everybody now, and then if you could mute yourself if you don't want to speak. But if somebody could just come in and say, what are you doing? What are you thinking about? What are you doing right now to find out how it's changed?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
That's the advice here. If you do need cash and you want to go for one of those
Yes.
launches on the 4th of May,
Oh,
that's next week.
somebody else come in. I think we were just overhearing a different conversation there. Anybody at all? You must be doing something.
Do you want me to talk about my role?
Go for it.
I'm Lawrence Lindsay of
Go for it.
Celebrating Memories, and I visit care homes as part of my job. Where basically I do reminiscence sessions with people. Obviously, that work is completely finished just now, and probably for the foreseeable future. So what I've started doing is remote reminiscing, where I've actually recreated my programs on a PowerPoint presentation, and then I'm using Zoom to entertain people, and I'm just slowly building it up, because the care homes, invariably the activity coordinator I'm working with doesn't quite understand technology. So I've done a few sessions and they've gone really well. They've lost the personal contact. I've not able to dance with people and sing with people, but I'm able to do some kind of entertaining. But the technology aspect's the one that's kind of killing me, because people are afraid of technology. Zoom seems quite easy, but for some people they're struggling with it. So I'm trying to get into the care homes. I'm trying to make myself be known globally, because now I'm not stuck in Ayrshire. I can entertain around the world doing my sessions. So that's my idea. So that's my pain at the moment, and I'm trying to find out how to access the care homes around the world, or anybody, so I can just build up my business again, because I was fully booked as a month ago.
Sure.
And I'm fully unbooked.
Sure. Yeah. So talking about the customer pain point, what is that? How's that pain point evolved? What is it for your customer? Because you just talked about your pain point there, and how it's I now need to take what I do offline online.
Yeah.
Has your customer journey changed, which has influenced that?
I've got the issue. I'm not too sure about contacting care homes as well, because I know they're busy at the moment as well. And maybe the last thing they want to do is hear from me. But the ones I have spoken to have actually been quite happy to hear from me. But they are just a bit scared of the technology side of it. That's all. Where I can go in, attach my laptop to the television and do a wee presentation, and they're quite happy to listen and watch and involve themselves. But that's my little problem at the moment. It's just getting people to buy into using Zoom and whatever. I don't know if it's you, sorry.
It was interesting, and John, you might want to come in here, but I mean, it's we're talking about when we speak to entrepreneurs, certainly we're talking about how many conversations can you have with key customers? How many conversations can you put in the top of the funnel that allows you maybe 5 quality conversations to really understand that customer pain point? Because right now we're just kind of sat here assuming that our customers have changed, and assuming that they're busy, and assuming that they don't want to speak to us, when actually there could be another way of coming at their pain points. Are there really good ways of approaching conversations, John, or how would you do it?
Well, I got a few thoughts about that. I mean, one is sorry, this is rather dark, but there is an extra urgency about this, because a shocking number of people are dying in care homes from COVID. So, Lawrence, what exactly do you do with them? If you could describe it in one sentence, are you telling their stories to their relatives or something different?
No, it's actually based on different kind of subjects, like famous people with glasses, famous people with hats, famous statues, and I basically tell a wee story about the image that comes up, and then it leads to a song, and everyone sings along, and that actually does work when I do it. I mean, I'm very good with storytelling and such like, and I've been doing this for free now. I mean, I've basically, as you were saying a little earlier, I've just, because I've just offered this service for free until the foreseeable future. I can just about cope with that for 6 months, just to try and show that I'm happy to help people and offer a service, and prepared to work for nothing, and use my skills that way. But
that can be a good idea. I think I've been teaching people on my ear program thing to consider an act of generosity. What can you do that is really, really valuable to people, that, you know, for me, I do the 5-day challenge. I've got that Facebook group, Humanity versus Corona. I did a free Zoom session, things that are quite chunky and have real value, which you're doing, which then allows you to, in terms of how do you get into care homes, you're now saying, I'll do this thing for free. That's quite a different pitch from trying to get their attention when it costs money. Now, the challenge is, when are you may never get allowed back in there. Until everybody's vaccinated, and that could literally take, you know, even best case scenario, if some vaccine is available in September, we're not going to get everyone vaccinated in the country. So that could be, God knows, it could be 6 months, a year.
Yeah.
So
My
you
idea
need
is
a
maybe to
strategy
get
around that.
Yeah, the idea is probably to get better at presenting these, and that's partly why I'm offering for free, because if someone doesn't pay me, then they can't complain. But the ones I've done so far have gone really well, and it's gone back to my hospital radio days where I used to play music and talk. Now I've actually got images to back up the talking. So
no, that's good. And I think Zoom is not user friendly. I know for us it's kind of like not a big deal, but it asks a lot of people. It's not, I don't know what's wrong with that seat, because he founded the go-to webinar thing as well, and I thought that was crap. So, you know, it could be an awful lot more usable, and it's designed as a corporate tool. So if you go into the settings, they're bewilderingly complicated because they're designed for controlling the settings for 1,000 different staff. And one good thing that will come out of this is that there is increased interest in competitors to Zoom that are more designed for B2C. And I think if you Google them, I know Product Hunt a while ago, producthunt.com, had a newsletter about alternatives to Zoom. And there are, of course, if you're just doing one-to-one, then you've got a lot more options. You've got things like Skype and Messenger. Messenger, in fact, are opening up competition to Zoom by introducing Zoom rooms. They're not universally available yet, but they're not called Zoom rooms. They're just called rooms. But basically, it's taking on Zoom in the sort of B2C space. So I do think it would be worth looking at something that does not require an install, does not go, can I use your microphone? Actually, I don't know if there's any way around that. But, you know, doesn't require registration, anything. I mean, getting my mum set up on Zoom for her partner's 90th birthday on Monday nearly made me want to kill myself. And I had to do it over TeamViewer in the end, if you know TeamViewer, and remote control her computer, because installing it was just too much for her. So it is an obstacle, and you've got to find a way around that. And then you've got to think about what is the business model long term, because for the rest of us, you know, we might be doing live events at some point fairly in a month or two of some sort, but you're going to be restricted for the most possible time.
Yeah.
It's really difficult, Lawrence. And there's a couple of things that kind of came off the back of a couple of sessions ago, which was the pivoting at pace one. And we were talking about how, you know, some people have the IP, some people have licenses, some people have different aspects to their business that they can kind of zoom in on now. And it was a guy who was making cold brew coffee, and he was also making a coffee liqueur with that cold brew coffee. And he had an alcohol license, which then allowed him to go and use that license that he already had to develop hand sanitizer.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying, I'm not saying go and make some hand sanitizer, Lawrence. What I'm saying is, you know, what aspects of your business can you kind of zoom in on, focus in on that people do want? The other point, and it's one that's being made on the chat right now, is if you can't get to your end user right now, and you can't get to that person maybe making that buying decision, who's the next best person? Who's their critical friend? Who's their influencer? How can you get them to influence that as well? And the talk on the chat is there that, you know, most people who are operating in, you've seen it, that most people operating in these care homes, they will be tech savvy. So maybe that's an avenue. But anyway, there's a few different routes there. Which is interesting to come at. But building on what you're doing now will solidify the foundations for when we go at pace, because you'll have alternatives, and suddenly you'll be looking to be able to be future-proof as well. So when the next big thing comes around, you've already changed something which can actually build those foundations to build on, which is which sounds fantastic. And yeah, so
you.
there's a number of things to explore there for sure. Does anybody else want to come in?
Okay, Kevin. I've got something I'm working on sales. I'm not a sales guy. I'm techie and I have no idea of sales. I think I've said that before. But one thing I've tried to do based on things running is what I just said on the chat as well. I'm trying to map my USPs to the pains I solve and pain questions. And what I was able to do, even though I sell B2B, so most of the conversations generally before this was generally B2B, right? I B, you B, and that's done. But the outcome of the work that I'm doing, most of the pain questions and the pain points seem to be aggregating towards my customer and my customer and their customers. So it's more becoming their B2C. So maybe I don't know whether it's going to work or not, but my focus rather than going from B2B, basically it's B2B2C, right? At the end of the day. So rather than going, the questions being from B2B, the questions are starting to turn from B2C, the second half, if that makes sense. Have I confused people?
Go
Well,
on,
no, so if I'm getting it right, so I think the thing is, the problem you need to sell to is the problem of the person who pays you. And you've got a similar problem by the sounds of it. If you're selling to corporations in order to solve their clients' problems, they're not going to buy unless the corporation sees it as a problem for themselves. For instance, if they're finding consumers aren't buying because they have this snag, now they're concerned. If they're fine, if consumers are sort of have a problem, but it doesn't really affect the business for the business, then they don't care. So you can only ever sell something to somebody if they have feelings about it. Basically, all sales, because somebody is unhappy about something or somebody desires something, they don't have any feelings about it, you can't sell to them. And you can attempt to engender those feelings. So, none of us knew we needed an iPad until Steve Jobs waved it at us and told us how sexy it was. But for most of us that don't have Apple's brand and billions of dollars of marketing budget, millions of dollars of marketing budget, we can't, it's just too expensive to try and engender an emotion in somebody. You have to hook into a problem people are already worried about. So this comes up with people who want to help the staff in a company, but the person who pays is the head of learning and development or the head of HR or something like that. Unless the head of HR sees a problem and is concerned about it and is worried about it or wants to do something about it, you can't sell. So it doesn't matter if the staff, say all the staff are unhappy, if all the management are absolutely fine with that, you're not going to be able to sell them anything. So,
Absolutely.
Bad news for the staff, but it just won't. So you've always got to think, what is the pain of the person who's paying the bill? When I was hired as a consultant, I remember getting hired into part of the BBC by an independent consultancy, and I was reviewing something by a part of the BBC, and then Deloitte was in there, and then another independent consultant, and everybody was trying to tell me what to write a report. It was a really funny thing. And my person who hired me said, if you get this right, everybody's going to hate you. And he was right. And by the time I left, all three of us on the team were literally hiding under the desk as we pressed send on the report. I mean, I'm not kidding, hiding. And somebody was running downstairs to stop us sending the report. But I knew I'd done the right thing because I'd done what the person who's paying the bill wanted me to do, which is to be objective. Now, if somebody else has been paying the bill, I'm not going to lie, but I have to do the right thing by the person who's paying me ultimately. Yeah. And it's the same when you're trying to sell a product or service as well. You've got to think in those terms.
Interesting. So my example being in tourism. So I sell software to holiday companies and things like that. So now they are all working from home. So I'm trying to say, right, look, the work that I've been doing is making sure my stuff actually works on every app. So, the way you said about people waving you did not know about iPads, which didn't come into 2010. I was actually writing software for multi-platform applications in 2005 and 2006. So I have a technology like now which does it, and I sell that for a living. So one of the things I'm trying to do is make sure it works and is, more absolutely flawless. And I am now trying to present that to my prospects and going, look, guys, this is a working app. Look, it actually works out in the field. You have the same problem because you haven't got the staff, you can't take the calls, doesn't work. And the other side being is their customers, people who are just at home, and these are the problems you're having with your systems because you can't do X, Y, Z. Hence, my system can do that. That solves your problem. And people are at home looking and trying to make bookings on their tablets and iPads. Look, we've got these rather people, customer journey, their customer's journey, all the things that it solves for their customers.
One of the things you could do then, Deepak, is you could run a kind of trial effectively where you assess the conversion rates of bookings before you come in. You implement your software or your system or whatever it might be, and then you look at the uplift in conversions afterwards.
Yeah. And so I've got those examples as well. So one of the customers.
So then basically, then what you're selling against is particularly if you're in the travel industry. The travel industry is just destroyed at the moment. So if you can show that if people are taking any bookings at all and you help with that, then you can show that if you any uplift, if you get a 10-20% increase in conversions, that's enormous right now. So that's what everybody should be doing, thinking about how do I sell what they want. Sometimes you have to, if you have good software or a better way for people to live, it doesn't matter unless they want it. So you have to sell what people want and deliver what they need.
Yeah.
And if whatever they want, if you can map what you deliver to that, then in the process, you can deliver what they need. And in the example of my friend who does, courses for women about their relationship with food, she didn't want to talk about dieting because she doesn't believe in dieting. But ultimately, she talked about having a better relationship with food. Well, that's not something somebody really wakes up in the middle of the night worrying about. And so they had to eventually change their language and talk about, are you sick of yo-yo dieting? And people went, oh my God, yes. And that's, the company's called Beyond Chocolate. It's really successful.
So John, just interesting, just bring it back in. When we're looking at, there's a number of entrepreneurs and people who have businesses on this call, and the title of the call being "Creating the Future." What would you say, from your experience and working with thousands of entrepreneurs, what would you say the 3 things that you should be doing right now are to make sure that you're ready to accelerate out of this as soon as we get going?
I think people need a plan for when this is all over, because it could happen in some ways quite quickly. Now, we're not just going to walk out of our houses tomorrow and everything will go back to normal. Things will be altered, at least for a while. But if Boris Johnson, for instance, in the UK stands up today and says, okay, this is our plan, we're all going to be out in 2 weeks, or at least everyone under 70 is going to be out, or whatever it might be, you just go like, oh shit, what am I going to do now? So the first thing is you need at least some plan for when that happens, so that you're not scrambling when the news comes out, in the same way you were scrambling when we were all put into lockdown. So you need to think about, you might even want to have like a campaign ready you can press go on that says, okay, classic thing would be a restaurant. If you go, okay, you can eat outside of the restaurant, you can't eat inside. Here's the deal. We've got this many places, and you need to think about how that's going to work and whether there's a premium for doing that because you've got fewer people in the restaurant. And you need a booking system for it and everything. Get ready for it. So I think that's one thing. The other 2 things are, I suppose we have to think about how the world will change in the medium term, at least, if not long term. Some things will be permanently altered by this. So what we've seen is an acceleration of what would have happened anyway. Companies that were going to go bust have gone bust, sadly. Some of them were going to anyway. People were going to discover eventually, God knows how long I've been saying, you can do any work you want. You can work from home, you can work from anywhere in the world. And people just looked at me blankly like I was, talking nonsense. You know, obviously people here generally kind of get what I'm talking about, but the public at large kind of went, oh yeah, right, and couldn't see how it applied to them. And now what's happened is we've all been forced to work at home. And so I think a lot of people are going to discover, actually, if I can work at home on laptop and it all just works, why can't I do this all the time? Or why can't I, you know, work from Bali or Thailand as I do for a couple of months of the year or permanently? So I think we're going to see, you need to also plan for how the world is going to shift and what it's going to mean. And we don't know all of those things yet, but we can take a stab at it. So that's the second thing. And I think, I don't know what the third thing is. I think the third thing actually is, while you're getting ready for the future, look at how your target market's concerns have changed. And if you haven't already done it, pivot so that all your messaging is different. So when the lockdown first occurred, I saw some people who their websites looked exactly the same as they did 2 weeks before. You can't do that because it looks tone deaf. And if, you know, I had a woman join my course in America, and she does a home delivery service for seniors. And she said, I don't want to, it was a successful business, been running for 30 years, and she delivers people's groceries. She said, I don't want to look like I'm jumping on the bandwagon because of the virus. And so she hadn't changed her website and she hadn't said anything about it, but she was massively busy. And she couldn't afford to hire another van, to buy another van. And I said, well, like just in a few minutes, I gave a few suggestions. But first of all, you need to change the front page of your website because you're in more demand than ever. And not to even mention the virus, particularly for elderly people, just seems like what planet are you on? In fact, we might even think your business has collapsed. Like if I see a website hasn't been updated for months at a time, I might assume that you're not working anymore. You could have died for all I know. So you need to do that, and you need to change what your messaging is around and possibly change your strategy.
Yeah,
so
definitely.
Those are 3 things off the top of my head that I would suggest.
Thank you, John. No, I appreciate those. And no, I totally agree. It's kind of, you know, fitting in that scenario planning, how you're being seen by the customer facing aspects of your business, really important. And understanding that customer journey is also, you know, being able to pivot and deliver the value that you need to be able to deliver in the future. Liz makes a really good point, and that is, you know, the kind of this rebound effect and how there could be a second and a third lockdown so one critical part of what I would implore everybody to do on this call is scenario plan. And it could simply just be those key questions. It could be, if this, then this is what I will do. If this happens, then this is what I will do. But just map them out in your head. And if you have a plan or even half a plan around those scenarios, then you're already ahead of the game and you can react quicker when it actually happens. So that scenario planning is really important. We're certainly doing that with a number of different people at the moment. So it's important.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
John, it's very close to 3 o'clock. I want to say thank you very much for being on the call and being able to deliver those nuggets of information that hopefully people have been able to pick up on and use straight away. So, and that's the whole point of these calls, is to get something, just that little thing, to go and enact in your business right now, go and put it in action and keep moving forward. So on behalf of everybody on this on the call, thank you so much, John, for being with us. And of course, I don't need to plug the book; it's there in front of us. Please go and if you're interested in to hear more and understand this, then go. And also go and check out the Ideas Lab as well, because John's running a number of programs through that at the moment. So it's
the book Screw or Break Free, one that's a bit later, might suit the people here who are in the latest, you know, trying to get an idea off the ground. And if you want to find out about everything I do, you can go to theideaslab.org, which I've just put in the chat. And you can find out about this free thing happening next week, where I'll be talking about exactly this kind of stuff of how do you find the right market, how do you communicate with them, and so on.
Really appreciate it. Thank you, John. And don't forget, we do want to hear from everybody on the call. So if you could go and take our survey, which we will, again, please just put it into the chat again. If you could just take a copy of that link and fill in that survey for us. It just helps us understand where everybody is right now and tailors the content that we deliver in future sessions. Next session will be on Thursday, the, where are we? 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, is it? Next Thursday, before the new bank holiday. So Thursday, 2 p.m. We look forward to seeing you then, and thank you for being part of it today.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.
Thanks, Mark.
Thanks. Bye.
Cheers.